Everybody, April 2014 marks 20 years of democracy in South Africa. The book, A Rumour of Spring by Max du Preez, analyses this period and gives close scrutiny to the country's scenario over these last 20 years. It looks at issues like education, unemployment, security, economic policies, everything really that has been implemented so far. Max du Preez is in studio with me to talk about his new publication. Good to have you. Welcome back to the SABC and welcome to Morning Live.
My first time back in 13 years.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
in 13 years? My goodness. Well, welcome. It's good to have you back here.
I hope when I leave this time it will be under more pleasant circumstances.
Yeah, well, I think it will be. We'll give you a nice cup of coffee on the way out. It's a pleasure. It's interesting to note that from the onset you state that as a fact the impact and legacy of colonialism and apartheid, this is it. I mean, does that establish the book if one has to look at those two things?
Yeah, I think I needed to kick off with the statement that we have all, including the ruling party, business community, faith communities, we have all underestimated how quickly we could get over the legacy of apartheid. Because we look around us and we see strange things happening in our society that we can't explain. Teachers neglecting their children, nurses being cruel, child rape, violence, all kinds of things. And I stumbled upon a Nicaraguan psychologist, the name of Dr. Martha Cabrera. And she went to Nicaragua to counsel people. She workshopped people because, they had earthquakes and civil wars and hurricanes and stuff. And she says nothing worked. And then after Hurricane Mitch in 1898, she went back there and took psychologists with her and then talked to people. They had nothing left after the hurricane. And people said, yeah, we want to talk about our houses being destroyed and we have nothing to eat and where to live. But can we actually talk about how our daughters were raped during the dictatorship? Can we talk about the Civil War? I lost my son in the Civil War. And it came out that and she coins the term, they're a multiply wounded, multiply traumatized society. And they never had a chance to actually gather and get this stuff out.
Yeah.
And then she mentions the symptoms of the Nicaraguan people because of this trauma. And you can apply that to us. So I'm beginning with that and say, let's make no mistake. That aftermath will still have to be dealt with for generations to come. Yeah,
certainly. I mean, that's a reality. But in the book, you mentioned that it baffles you that this government still uses apartheid as an excuse, but
rather than as an explanation.
Okay, explain it to us. Let's dig deeper into that.
Yeah, I'm with Trevor Manuel, who said last year or earlier this year that we can't keep on blaming apartheid for all the shortcomings of the government. And he was massacred by a lot of people saying, apartheid, and of course they were right, but that's not what he meant. And my sense is that he meant, and that is what I think we should think, is that we can explain an awful lot of wrongs and problems in our society when we look at our past. But we can't use it as an excuse. Because 20 years is a long time with full political power, and I think we should be honest, we could have done a lot more. And sometimes some politicians hide behind that. So they're the two sides.
Yeah.
The legacy of apartheid and colonialism is a heavy burden, but that's our challenge, is to build on the ashes of apartheid. And often we can say, well, we didn't do that well enough.
Yeah. Now, we look in this book at particularly two dispensations of former presidents in the lead up to how we got here. Where are we? When you talk about how we get here, how do you explain where we're at as South Africa?
Well, we go through the period of the Prague Spring of Nelson Mandela, that golden era, that had to end. It was a short period of reconciliation and nation building, stabilizing, reassuring South Africans, reassuring the world that we're going to be okay. And then Thabo Mbeki had to come in, and he had an incredibly difficult job of stepping in the shoes of Saint Mandela and actually starting to do business in the country. And that was a hard job. And then came Polokwane. And I write quite a bit about that Polokwane was a low point in the ANC's history, in South Africa's history. And since Polokwane, many more problems. Reckless populism, more corruption, more nepotism manifested. And I think between Polokwane and Mangaung last year, South Africa hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And we're on the up. What I do, Leanne, is I dispel the myth with arguments and facts and statistics that South Africa is about to become a failed state or a Zimbabwe or a banana republic. And I say, you know, we don't have a military trying to take over power. We don't have ethnic violence. We don't have religious fundamentalism or religious violence. We have none of those things. Instead, what we have is a nation that had proved in '94 that we can pull off stuff like a magnificent settlement and constitution. So it's a land of opportunity, but we've got to fix a few things. And the one main thing that I come to in this book is we have failed our children. I call the chapter an undeclared war on our own children. Education had failed, and that's the one thing. It's the big red flashing light that I see.
Yeah.
But for the rest, I think South Africans should now know that between now and May, they should just roll their eyes and say whatever when they listen to a politician, because it's election time.
It's election
So
time.
people say wild things. It's not real. It's not real. We shouldn't be scared.
Yeah.
If you wonder whether you or your children should leave the country, because when you look around and things are a bit rough, there's a lot of noise. This book says, don't.
Don't go.
This
Stay.
is the land of opportunity. We've got to fix a couple of things and fast.
Yeah.
But this is still the best country to live in.
Well, Max, I mean, that's a brilliant place to leave this particular interview, because that was what I was going to ask you at the end of it all. You know, I know it's a harsh criticism, but at the end of the day, you know, that what is the overriding message, and that's it. There is still so much hope in this country.
The rumour of spring is not a rumour of an Arab Spring.
Yeah.
It's a spring of new growth and new hope after next year's election, if we do the right things.
All right. So, I think we've piqued your interest. Max du Preez's latest book, A Rumour of Spring, whether a spring Arab or the dawn of a new spring here in South Africa, you decide for yourself. South Africa, after 20 years of democracy. But as Max says, if you're thinking of going, running away, don't do it. Read this book and you'll understand why.